Good morning. Thank you, Nick. Good morning, everyone, or I guess it's almost afternoon, so good afternoon as well. I'm Keziah Haviland. I am the Village Trust Initiative Director at Vermont Council on Rural Development, and I am joined by a few of my coworkers and members of Preservation Trust, who I'll turn it over to in just a moment. But I want to start just by thanking you all for taking time out of your day to be here with us. I also want to thank you for taking an interest in the future of your communities. We are so excited to announce the second round of the Village Trust Initiative. And I'm just going to give a few quick housekeeping items before I turn it over to Ben Doyle, the President of Preservation Trust. So first, we will be recording the webinar, as you might have heard a second ago. We're going to send this link out to all the registrants. We'll put it on the VCRD website and YouTube channel, so it will be available for you to watch after or for you to send along to people who are not able to make it today. Also, if you would please mute your microphones, so if you could take a moment to do that right now. As I mentioned, Zoom is incredible these days and picks up everything that's within a foot or two of the computer. So if you could do that until the end of the presentation, that would be great. If you have questions, you're welcome to drop those into the chat, to write them down, whatever works for you. And we'll make sure to try to get to all of them as best we can at the end. And then finally, if you're having any technical issues, you can send a private chat to Nick Parker from VCRD, who is on here, and he can help you with whatever technical issues you're experiencing. So those are all the housekeeping items. So I will turn it over to Ben Doyle from Preservation Trust to tell us how we got here today.
Great. Well, thank you, Keziah, and good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see so many folks on the call, and I'm going to be really brief. I'm just here to provide, again, a welcome and a thank you for serving your community and for all that you do as a local community champion, which is why I think you're here. I would like to just provide a little bit of history on like how did we end up here and what is this initiative and where did it come from? And, the Village Trust Initiative is a partnership between the Vermont Council on Rural Development, the Preservation Trust of Vermont, and the Vermont Community Foundation. And it really stems from kind of two truths that we recognized a few years ago. One is that when we're working on community and economic development projects, it's often the smallest towns in Vermont, the small villages that are left behind and have the communities with the least amount of capacity have the hardest time pulling down state and federal resources. And, we thought a lot about how could you kind of address that on a systemic way. And one of the questions we asked ourselves was, well, what if instead of showing up with like a grant program or a different toolbox, what if we just showed up with curiosity and said, what is it that you want to do in your rural village to make it vital? Right? To make it the kind of place that when, thousands of people move to Vermont in the coming decades for whatever reason, that they choose Belvedere over Burlington, right? What is it about a small rural village that is appealing to someone that wants to make a life there? And what are the kinds of social infrastructure that's required for that to happen? And so this is really a program that's about supporting you and your vision for a rural village of the future. And, the second kind of thing that we thought about is, well, of our three organizations, what if we just did what we each do best? And the Vermont Council on Rural Development is the kind of recognized leader of public facilitation in the state of Vermont that helps communities articulate a vision. And at the Preservation Trust, for almost 50 years, we've been working with small towns, helping them save general stores, town halls, just kind of like real project management stuff is really what we excel at. And then, of course, the Vermont Community Foundation is, Vermont's statewide philanthropic leader that helps connect donors to really transformational projects in Vermont. And so the three of us thought, if we can work together kind of synergistically, we might really have a chance to do something special here. And we're able to do this because of, frankly, the leadership of Senator Leahy, who recognized this opportunity and decided to support it with a congressionally directed spending award. And so really it's thanks to his leadership that we're able to take what we've seen work before and really accelerate it to the next level. And, we're opening up the second round of this initiative. We already have 7 communities that are a part of it now, and we're already learning so much from them that we're excited to share with you. So again, I'm just going to turn it over to the incredible team that we have in Keziah and Nicole But I really just wanted to say thank you so much to all of you, to Senator Leahy for making this possible, and to say how excited we all are to support you in making your village a thriving place where generations of people can continue to live there. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you so much, Ben. That was fantastic. So what is the Village Trust? I think Ben just gave us a great overview for why it formed, but what is it that it's going to do? As Ben described, it is a partnership between these three organizations, but it's also a partnership between us and your community. This will bring together the expertise of these statewide organizations to support participants to create community-directed change in your villages. So we'll be here to support you as you form or reinvigorate your organization, as you ask your community about its vision for the future, its wants and its needs, as you take steps to secure a building all the way through the ribbon cutting at the end of construction. This is a long road. Most development projects take 2 to 5 years at minimum to complete, but we will not abandon you during this process. We're going to be here with you, supporting you. We'll do things like ensure your bylaws work for your purpose and ensure that your mission is focused on the vitality of the community. We'll answer your questions and sometimes provide legal services as you walk through the details of the 501c3 formation process. We'll support robust community engagement and project prioritization in a way that works for your community. We'll provide technical assistance support for pre-development work such as permitting, feasibility, environmental testing, engineering, design. I told you this was a long road and more. And we will provide some initial funding and help assemble other funding sources for the construction phase of your project. So the intent here really is to increase capacity, both within your group and within the community. So we'll have you work with your town, your select board, your planning commission, with the regional development and planning commissions to take on something transformational, while hopefully lightening each other's loads a little bit. In 2024, we had over 70 towns apply to this initiative. We had a heck of a time bringing this list down to 7 final communities. And we really hope, and actually I now know that some of you here are applying this year again, and we are very excited to see you. We had projects over this past year that range from renovating a school into a rec and community space, to coffee shop, to potential art studios and event space, housing. It's incredibly varied. Projects and buildings have shifted throughout the engagement process, and some groups are where they thought they may be, and other groups have grown to take on a larger transformational project. So, and these, sorry, I should have mentioned this. These are our 7 communities participating this year. It's Benson, Braintree, Greensboro Bend, Lunenburg Gilman, Reading, West Fairleigh, and Wolcott. There are a few musts in terms of applying to this program, so several qualifying factors. First, your population of your town must be under 2,500 as per the 2020 decennial census. And I say town specifically because we had many people inquire last year about, oh, we have a village within our town, even though our town's population is larger, our incorporated village is underneath this. So that doesn't qualify. It is actually the population of your full town that we're looking at. Number 2, the projects must be inside a village environment. So what does this mean? I pulled up Braintree here on our map. There must kind of be a grouping of structures, a crossroads, some housing with a church, something that speaks to the village. It doesn't have to be a designated village center, although that is something we might work with you to do because it will be helpful as you move through your project, but it's not a must for applying. 3, municipalities are not eligible for this program. That's not to say that a select board member can't sit on your organization's board or a planning commission member can't sit on your board. It's just that the municipality itself is not applying. So it's going to be a group of people within your town that is going to be applying to this. 4 is that outdoor recreation projects are not eligible for this program. We love our trails, we love our fields, we love our pavilions, but unfortunately that is not what this is focusing on. There are other resources for those projects, we are really focusing on the built fabric within your village environment. 5, applicants must obtain a letter of support from the select board. And I have pulled up here a template that we'll be providing for you. This is important to us because this is a project that you're going to have to work with your select board on. It's not to add anything to their plate. You will be taking on a bulk of the work, but we need to see that they're supporting the work that you're doing. So we'll have a template for this. We'll have a few other templates that we'll release at the same time that we release the application itself. And number 6, applicants must have a clear and documented path towards site control. What does that mean? So this is a little bit varied. Site control could be one of several things. It could be a deed to the property that's listing your group as an owner. It could be a long-term lease on the property that demonstrates your organization has or will hold the building. It could be a letter from a landowner acknowledging interest to sell or lease the property for a set price to your organization. And again, we'll try to provide some templates for you, or if you have questions on that, you can reach out to us throughout the application process to get a little more clarity on what site control means. Let's see. I think that's the end of where I am. So at this point, I'll turn it over to my partner at Preservation Trust, Nicole Grattan, and I'm going to mute myself. Nicole, are you there?
I'm here, yes. Hi, everyone. So just one more thing about site control. This is federal funding coming through PTV to come to you. So as you think about applying and think about that site control, please be in touch if you have questions. What we do not want you to do is go out and buy a building before we talk with you. So we are here always as technical assistance and support. So if you have a question about site control, email me. We will help you navigate that. We just don't want you to jump too far and disqualify yourself. All right, so back to the slides. Here is our evaluation criteria. So once you fill out the application, which will open up on July 7th, we're going to collect all of them, and come September, we're going to start to sift through them. And as you kind of saw in those first 7 communities, we're really taking a very comprehensive look at a lot of different things to kind of form the perfect mix of different things that are happening in Vermont. So the list here kind of outlines some of those things that we're going to be looking at. Project readiness. We want to have some projects that are, toward the end of their work. They may have already done a few things and they're kind of taking on another phase. Some might be just beginning. Community readiness is a big one. It starts with having that select board kind of say, yes, we're here with you in solidarity to take this on. And other community groups may have done a lot of community engagement already. So it's going to run the gamut there as well. Different project types, everything from general stores to schools to community centers, housing, project scales, big and little. Community need, you'll be addressing that in the application itself of what is it that your community is really needing, and how could this project be helpful to meeting that need. Different community resources. These are lots of times embedded in your people of someone has this skill, someone has that skill set, but it can also be things within your community. Oh, we're along a rail trail, or we just had an expansion project in the library. There's going to be all these different characteristics about your community that will come into play as well. Diversity, we're looking for being across the state in different communities and different project types. All of that's kind of taking place there. Recent change and disruption. This is another one where when we speak about the transformational power of a project, they often land in places that have had a change or a disruption. That doesn't mean that it has to have happened in the past year. Sometimes changes happen 20 years ago, but your community is still feeling it. So again, kind of speaking to how your potential project could help meet the needs of your community. And then finally, the funding landscape is a piece of this as well. We want to make sure that we can be working with you to find additional funding sources that can help match up with your project. You can change the slide. So these are my 3 C's. I say them a lot: clear, concise, compelling. So we got feedback last year that the application windows were a little too small. So we're going to be elongating them this year so you can tell more of your story. But if you take away these 3 words, I swear you will come away with a pretty strong application. Clear. Make sure what you're telling us is exactly what you want us to know. Concise. You can probably boil down your 3 sentences into one really good sentence. And if you need help, we live in an AI world, and ChatGPT could probably assist you with this. And then finally, compelling. A lot of the work that we do, both at VCRD, VCF, and PTV, is tell stories. And I know that kind of fictionalizes your work. It's very grounded, but you guys each have a story of who you are and where you are as a community, and that's the compelling piece. I don't really want to hear about something that happened 80, 100 years ago. I want to know what's happening in your community now. So you can weave in those pieces, but tell a compelling story. Next slide. So we purposely designed this Village Trust Initiative to be a program, and that's because what we find in our communities is that money's helpful, but often you guys need also the technical assistance. So we are giving you these wraparound services to really hold your hand and help you grow as a community group as you move through this program. Because of that, there are these 3 things, and you're going to see these in the application, that you have to check the box and say, yes, we understand these 3 things. So number 1 is that it's a lot of time. We recognize you all mostly as volunteers. Some communities have a paid part-time person that can be helping out, but most of it's led by volunteer effort, and that's just a big time commitment. So we just want to have people know up front that that's a piece to all of this. That's not to say that you won't have members of your group that float in and float out for different pieces, but there's often 1, 2, 3 key members that really hold the project and keep it moving forward. And so we just want to have people recognize you're in it with us. The second one is that we are here to help you. And so we are going to be providing guidance to help move your project forward. And with that, we recognize that you guys are your own autonomous group. You can choose to go where you're going to go, but really the technical assistance is here to help move you in the right direction with some efficiency and time saving. And then the last one, please make a big highlight in your notebooks on this one, but a big piece of the funding stack not only is going to be this program, the Village Trust Initiative, but each community will be required to spearhead a substantial capital campaign. And so we often talk of a 3-legged funding stool. You'll have some federal funding, which is the Village Trust Initiative funding. You're going to have some state funding. We have many programs that we can be pulling in to kind of weave together a funding package for you. But there is also this very important leg of building funding, philanthropic giving from your community. A project is most successful when you get the buy-in, both ideas and concept, but also giving from your direct community. And I know that sounds intimidating, but we have the support and a very long track record to show that when communities really believe in a project, they come and they do step up to support it as well. So I don't know why this is such a boring picture, but here is your funding stack. How fun. I spoke to basically all of that already. So you're going to have, if you are selected into the program, the VTI implementation funds. You're going to have that local capital campaign. It's a big, substantial give. And then there are these additional resources that we at PTV and VCRD and VCF will help kind of align for you. That's not to guarantee that they will be there, but it's kind of a pathway that we can be setting you on. The strings part of all money is that there are these checkpoints depending on the funding source. And so we're just highlighting them super briefly here, just to let you know that they're there, but there's also the support around it to help get you where you need to go. So an environmental review will be something that you will be taking on at a certain point in your project. That's to look at the project and make sure that it's not going to negatively impact people or place. The second one is choice limiting actions, which I touched upon with don't just go out and buy a building. Talk with us first and we'll help navigate the choice limiting actions piece of all of this. And then finally, there will be procurement procedures. So at the very, very end, when you're ready to buy stuff, whether that's hiring a contractor or purchasing equipment for a new commercial kitchen, there are certain rules and regulations that we have to follow, and we will be guiding you through that as well. The point of this slide is to let you know there's a lot going on and we are here to help you. So don't feel overwhelmed by this. The technical assistance is really meant to kind of streamline and get you from point A to point B. So key deadlines, here it is. We are at the pre-application webinar and we've said that this is being recorded so you can come back and listen again. The applications will go live on Monday, July 7th, and they will be available on the Preservation Trust of Vermont website. So you can link through our website to get to that. You have a nice chunk of time, 60 days, to submit that application. So applications will be due Friday, September 5th. And the reason for that time is so that you can start to connect with different community members, you can meet with your select board, you can talk with a landowner, you have some time to kind of put these pieces into place. Once September application period closes, our advisory council will review the applications and we will be selecting 8 to 10 communities to do village visits. These are fun. Keziah and I, we come to your community. We get to meet with the people on your potential project team. We get to see the building or buildings that you have an idea for, and we get to kind of just get a sense of your village. And so those will happen at the end of September and into October. And then we will be announcing the 2025 VTI cohort at the end of October or early November. And I always just give myself a little bit of a window there because you never know what's going to happen. And so thank you. Again, as Ben said, this doesn't happen just because Keziah and I are here. This is because all of you believe in your communities and you're willing to step up to make it happen. And so again, the biggest shout out should really be to you all for seeing that vision in your communities. Our contact information is there. So if you have any questions, we're always an email or a phone call away. But we have plenty of time to kind of take on some questions now if anyone has things that are kind of popping up in their mind.
And I will also add to that, Nicole, thank you, first of all, but that we are going to structure in some office hours during this application process, and we'll be announcing those soon. So if you do have other questions that come up during the process, of course, you're always welcome to reach out through an email or a phone call, but we'll have some designated time where you can sign up and we can really go through your questions in more detail. So I'm going to stop sharing. See if I can see everybody.
I see some questions from Teresa. Hi, Teresa. The group. So in the application, it's going to ask for 3 key members. And the reason we're having that be 3 this year, that wasn't an element of the application last year, but is you need at least 3 people to start a nonprofit community trust. And so we're hoping from between now and when that application period closes in September, you're starting to think about who those people in your community might be. So you need to have at least 3 names on the application. And there will be space if you have additional people that are really important to kind of list them out as well. Your next question is, can the town administrator do the application? Yes, that's added capacity. The fact that your community has a town admin and they're willing to help is a-okay fine. We, again, just want to make sure that it's not just a municipally driven program. The idea is to have this other group, the community trust, be a source of additional capacity within your community. Kim, you guys can just shout these out too. Should we have our community trust established before we apply? You do not need to. And I would say, I think a bigger piece of your work right now is just thinking about what is that perfect mix of people. And that's some of the work that you can be doing with VCRD. So it does not need to be completely hashed out.
Nicole,
Nick?
can we maybe take one of the hand raises too, I think? RD,
Yes.
do you still have a
Yes.
question?
Thank you. With respect to the fundraising to the capital campaign, do donors to the capital campaign have to be local?
They do not. And we work with different fundraising specialists and they will kind of guide you through that work. But yes, there are definitely going to be people that have a connection to your community, but may not be living locally. Or we also have the case where surrounding communities kind of use your community as a hub and they may be donors as well. So it doesn't have to be directly from your community.
Thank you.
Yes, can I just speak up?
ahead.
I serve as a volunteer chair of the Town Planning Commission, and it would have no formal connection to this, but I might also be a person appropriate to be involved in this other activity. Is there any conflict there?
No, there's not. So you can continue to serve your community in other ways. So if you're a planning commission member and you want to take on a new organization, a community trust, it just can't be the planning commission. You can definitely wear multiple hats in your community, but we're looking to create a new organization that takes on this project. So it might be you and the guy that lives down the street from you and the librarian, a different combination of people in your community.
Or three people could have those positions and I could be a volunteer to that effort and have no position, but provide some support.
Yes, I would have to look at the specifics, but my general inkling is yes. Again, we're looking for people that are engaged and wanting to help your community. It just can't be the select board and a planning commission member and the town administrator taking on a municipal project. This is again intended to have this second group form up to build capacity in a different way. And the reason for that is a community trust or a nonprofit organization can take on private donations. A municipality can't do that. And so this is a way to build up your community through a different lever. That's not to say that there's not going to be overlaps in places, but the real intention is it's a new group that can take on different kind of work.
Great, I understand.
And
Nicole,
to
can I
speak to
just-
that, I mean, oh, go ahead,
Sorry.
Ben, please go ahead.
Can I just real quick, I just want to say, like, this is a really important distinction because, before when I mentioned like what we've noticed in our work is that, often the smallest communities are the ones that struggle to kind of pull down funding. And, that's largely a result of some of these villages really only having a town clerk or a town administrator. And we're also, this isn't just about like the physical building, right? This is really about building social connection and social capital. And so the idea here is the community trust. I mean, to be honest, the whole thing kind of started with a pun of this idea of a trust as an entity that owns property, but it's also this idea of like, how do we build civic engagement and trust in these villages, right? And so the idea is to build a structure that's not exactly parallel or independent from the municipality, but can serve as that local community and economic development entity that most communities, the select board's busy filling the potholes or paving the roads and doesn't have the, the capacity to take on the economic development project. So that's really why the trust model exists. And it's one that we've seen used successfully, particularly around general stores for many decades. And then the other thing I just want to point out is back on the local fundraising. We're joined today by our partner from the Vermont Community Foundation, Holly Morehouse, and just want to say that, they bring an enormous amount of expertise too in terms of like philanthropic giving. And, one of the components here too is that each trust will be set up with a kind of, I guess, a donor advised fund at the community foundation to kind of aggregate funds and just, be able to leverage their expertise and partnership. So just want to acknowledge Holly on the call and that's another really kind of key component of this initiative that I think is different from your average grant program.
And I'll also just, go ahead, if I could just reiterate that, even looking at our current groups, they are all very different. Some of them are comprised of a few select board members or planning commission members. Some are volunteers, some have a youth group that they're trying to bring in and work with. So we'll have sort of, as Nicole mentioned, some core people, but then there are other ways to support this as well, whether it's through an events and outreach committee, or, you have a special skill and you want to design a logo for the group, whatever it is. There's a lot of ways to get that engagement and to get that community support. So John, I think you had mentioned it could be a supporting volunteer, whatever that looks like. We can sort of help you figure out the structure that's going to work for your town and work for your organization. But for the application, as Nicole mentioned, the key thing is to really have those three primary people figured out. Okay, so more questions, Nick. Sorry to interrupt you a moment ago.
In our town, the property that we're looking at is already owned by the town. Would it be necessary to transfer that property over to a nonprofit?
Not necessarily. So a municipality can retain ownership of the site, but we need to see that the community trust has vested interest long-term to be in that space. And so we can work with you to kind of form a lease when it's time with the municipality to ensure that your community trust organization is the steward and the user of that space, so that the work that you're doing as a community trust has some security in that location. But that's something that we can help you with once you're part of the program.
Thank you.
Yep. Sorry, their hands are everywhere.
Nicole, I was just wondering, could we go back to the chat? I think we have a couple of questions there. Maybe we can go back and forth in the chat to folks raised hands. I think Kim Callahan had a question. Should we have our community trust established before we
Right.
apply?
Yep, and that's another person's question down here.
Yeah.
No, you do not need to have it yet. So just start to think about those key people, start to think about what your community wants to be working on, and that's enough for the application. And then Gretchen, your question just harks to another piece that's come up quite frequently. Yeah, you might actually have other nonprofits in your community already, maybe a historical society, maybe a different group that's just been dormant for a while. So this is that time to you can kind of be connecting with those people to see if this is something that feels like a good fit or not. Again, the goal is to create a group that has additional capacity to provide to the community. And so if your other individuals can help bolster up an existing group, that's one option. But if that existing group is just kind of feeling like they're on a different track, we can be creating something new to kind of usher you forward.
I'm going to speak really quickly to Jim Harlow's question. Just we will be sending out, as I said, a link to the recording. We can also, I think, send along a copy of the PowerPoint as well. But Melissa, you've had your hand up for a little while. Would you like to? Okay, cool.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute.
There you go.
Hi. My question is related to, I guess, partnerships. If you, I guess, this whole thing, idea of site control and having a nonprofit. If there was a structure that was potentially owned by a municipality, could there be kind of a partnership between the municipality and the nonprofit to utilize that property together? Thinking of like really small towns where there aren't a lot of resources or structures, but could they move forward together and you both utilize that space, or would it really have to be under the control of the nonprofit?
So, yeah, I'm going to again say yes, because there's just too many variables. So yes, I mean, when you think of our smallest places, many places you have more than one function. So yes, it could be a municipally owned place. Maybe they host their town meeting in there once a year, but the community trust would be the entity that's making sure that this is a vibrant place in the community the other 364 days out of the year. So there are potentials where the municipality can continue to own it and could be continuing to use it, but we're wanting to see that this community trust is building up that social infrastructure. The real heart of your community is what we're going for, more than like just revamping up a building. So if there's a place for your organization, that community trust, to be stepping in to bring people together and build up the vitality of your village, then yes, I think that there's space for that to be happening within a municipally owned and slightly used place. However, if it's like the town hall and all the offices are there and people are in there every day and you're just like looking to like fix up something that's been deferred maintenance for a municipality, that doesn't really have that same social infrastructure piece that we're really leaning into.
And thank you, that's clear. That makes sense, that it's really a matter of the intent of building up the social infrastructure. But could it be truly like a 50-50 split, municipal use slash, you know, economic development, community gatherings, community resource space, sheltering, things along those lines, potentially housing. Could you really truly have a 50-50 split, or does the municipal aspect have to be just a minor bit of it?
Again, not knowing like the specifics, there could be a building where it makes a lot of sense that the community trust uses this portion and the town uses this portion, and the village trust initiative could support this. But for a question like that, Melissa, I would say just give me a call.
Okay,
I'd love to just
thanks.
think with you
I was
about
just
that
gonna say that.
specific
Yep.
place. Yeah.
Reach out to us and we can kind of work through the details with you, either during office hours or, outside of that if need. I'm gonna go over to the chat quickly and hope that someone from Preservation Trust will answer this one. It's how secure is the federal funding? Are these legacy funds held by organizations in Vermont, or are they subject to upcoming congressional budget cycles?
I'll take that one. This is a congressionally directed spending award from fiscal year 2023, which basically, I mean, like in common parlance, it's an earmark, right, from Senator Leahy. And what that means is that this funding was secured in the federal budget that was passed and can only be used for this program. I'm sure, like, many of you, like we have been watching different federal programs be cut or different challenges to federal agencies in Vermont. And, that's, to be honest, from my point of view, very discouraging. Having said that, we have not heard reports of congressionally directed spending being clawed back, if you will. A lot of the federal cuts that we're seeing are at specific agencies or different programs of those agencies in which there's the kind of authority maybe to cut those programs. But this would be really like going back on an act of Congress. And also, the thing about congressionally directed spending awards is that they're bipartisan in nature. Not that there's really any rhyme or reason to some of the ways that these cuts are happening right now at the federal level. But that is to say that I personally believe, as a former federal employee and as someone who watches this and who's in regular communication with our current congressional delegation, that there's a lot of uncertainty out there in the world. But on the continuum of federal funds at risk, we believe that these are more secure than others. I don't know if that provides comfort or not, but we wouldn't be moving forward with this program in this way if we didn't have a certain degree of confidence. And then the other thing that, trust me, I am sometimes up at 2 o'clock in the morning being like, what happens if every federal dollar that we had went away? What would that mean? And I mean it when I say, and I think I can speak for the team here, that we're committed to this work with or without federal funds, right? We might not be able to make a $400,000 grant in the same way, but in terms of building that community capacity, right, helping you figure out the project, that's kind of what we've done for almost 50 years. Right. And we're just going to continue to do that because it's frankly more important now than it's ever been to build these community connections and for local communities to figure out how to get things done. So I hope that helps. And we would certainly be in regular communication if we felt like the program was at risk.
Thank you, Ben. I'm going to jump to Artie's question. Do you want to come off mute?
Thank you. I have two related questions. First of all, we have in Cabot a 501c3 dedicated to community development. Is that would that be an eligible recipient for assistance from this program, or would we have to form a separate 501c3 with respect to the project that we want to undertake? And just to follow on, we also have in Cabot a pot of money left over from an ancient grant, and would some of that, it has to be appropriated by town meeting. That's the authority that appropriates this money. Would that be also an eligible contribution to the capital campaign? So two questions. Do we already have an eligible participant? And B, can we make use of town appropriated funds in our capital campaign? Thank you.
Nicole, I'll take A if you take B. How's that sound? Okay. So, for the organizations that have already formed, it is likely if it has a community-oriented mission that we will be able to move forward with you. Please, again, reach out to us. We can look at your mission statement and your bylaws and let you know. But certainly if something, you know, as Nicole mentioned, it could be a historic society. It could be something that might be focused on the community itself, and we can potentially take that and move it forward. So you don't necessarily have to form a new one. Hopefully we can build on what you already have. And if that doesn't work, or if the group is uninterested, then we can start over. Nicole, do you want to take B?
Yes. So in most of the funding stacks that we're seeing, yes, a town appropriated contribution to the project would be okay. But I want to just like hold on to that. It's that building up of your community that is probably the more important piece with your capital campaign. When you have everyone on board in this project, all contributing, it definitely sets a different tone in your community. And those are often going to be our more successful projects overall. When you have everyone putting in for that porch on the general store, guess where they come back to after the project is done? So while yes, you can be using this other money to be part of the project's matching contributions, I don't want you to just think that like by taking that off the table, you're going to have a successful project. That capital campaign serves another purpose as well, and we can help navigate that pathway with you.
I might jump over to one of the chat questions again, and this one's from Shannon. Hello, Shannon. Are there any lessons learned from last year's round that applicants this year can learn from? And I'm going to go back to what Ben said at the very beginning, that, you know, we've learned so much from our communities this year, and we've learned a lot from previous applicants who reached out to us after and had questions about their application or about the process. And so we've tried to build a lot of that into this year's application to try to cover some of those lessons. But I think, you know, it is an organic process. We'll continue to learn. I think there are some things that, you know, can make for a stronger application in terms of, as Nicole mentioned, the criteria, a demonstrated community need, potentially having a feasible building identified, things like that. But Nicole, is there anything that you would really pinpoint as like a major lesson learned, or?
I think having a clear project is helpful. That's not to say that it's a requirement, but if you kind of have already started a conversation in your community, or and it could even be from a few years ago, that's definitely going to help kind of move that project along a little bit faster rather than starting just from like, hey, let's think about this now. And then really thinking about your group as you go into it. There are so many people in your community, you may not know them yet, but as you start to talk, you may find that there's a really excellent bookkeeper who wants to be part of your group, and that's going to be additional capacity for you. Or there may be somebody who is just a plethora of knowledge about all the little people, I want to say little people, all the people in your community, and that might be someone really important to bring in as you think about moving a project like this forward. So I would think clear project is definitely helpful, but not required. And then your group's capacity, really thinking outside of just the people that you know, to be thinking about who else in this community might be a really helpful hand. And it could be something really defined, or it could just be someone that has leadership and time to give to something like this.
And I'm actually going to read, if it's all right, one more question from the chat, because I think it could potentially build on, you know, lessons learned and things that we saw last year. This one's from Gretchen. It says, like another questioner, I was wondering how select boards will hear a requirement to provide a nonprofit some control over a building owned by the town. They'll be open to sharing it's not working, the workload of admin of the space, but I wonder how will they receive agreements that need to be put in place? Is there any history of this from last year? And I can start on that, but would love for Nicole to filter in as well. that I think this really varies town by town, and it's an important conversation. We do have projects this year that are in town-owned buildings, and it was a process to work through with the town to figure out what will work, what won't within the various agreements. And so it's hard to give a very specific answer, but I think it's a relationship that's really important to start building early, to present your thoughts, your ideas, to build that connection and get the feedback early on. I don't know if Nicole, you have more to add to that potentially.
I would just say it's a relationship. So building up that relationship is going to be really important if you're going to be working with a municipally owned building. And Gretchen, if in email we can go over more specifics, I probably can be providing you with a little better of an answer.
Nick, you have had your hand.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we get two of these earlier questions. Janet Lee asks, can you speak to developing a mixed-use development that the town is on board with and the community desperately needs? They are just finishing brownfield remediation.
So is
Janet,
this, oh, go ahead, Nicole.
I was going to have Janet. Janet, do you just want to ask your question with a little more detail so I can better answer it? Are you on the call, Janet?
Or if it's new
I am.
construction or renovation.
Yeah, I am. I'm sorry. I was like trying to get off mute. So this is a piece of property in Barton Village that has been owned by Jason Seacard for a number of years now, and they've been going through Brella, and they're kind of just coming out of that. And now it's like, and I'm working with the architect. And it's, right now they're more like, what are our options for funding? I mean, they've talked to Rural Edge, we've talked to VCDP, we've talked, like, we're just kind of talking to everybody and understanding what the options are. They want the community to be very involved, but I'm just trying to envision, because I do have another project, but I don't think that one would be a good fit. But I'm just trying to understand, like, would there even be a way to make this work? Because they're thinking like maybe a store, maybe a laundromat, maybe a little park, maybe a RCT bus stop, some affordable housing, maybe some townhouses, some office space. Like they kind of have been collecting a list of things that, the community has mentioned, the town has mentioned. And as they get the community more involved, they'll obviously kind of hone in and have more specifics about what this is going to be. Does that even sound like anything that could be a possibility for some? It is right in the village of Barton as well. Or does this seem too big or too?
Nicole, do you care if I tackle this one
Go
for a
for it.
sec? Is this the Barton Motors site?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So just to keep it real, Janet,
Yeah.
that's a really big project.
Yes.
Right? And
Yes.
that's really, I love the ambition. It's great, but that's probably beyond the scale of kind of like what we're looking at here. Right. I mean, to be honest, like most of these projects, like we envision, probably not exceeding like $2.5 million. Like that's on the really big side of these kinds of projects.
Mhm.
That site that you're talking about is really large, right? And needs, and so I think, but if you think about, was it TD Bank or Union Bank that was just up the street from that, the building that's
TD
now
is like a building over.
Right. So that, for example, I think is within the scale of this kind of program, right? So if you have people who want a restaurant, a store, a gathering place, mixed use development with housing up above, something like that, like there is that building, if it's still the way I think it is an underutilized historic resource in the center of Barton Village. Right. And that's the kind of thing that if you had a community trust that could purchase a building like that and lead a revitalization of that and a restoration of that building, that's like right in the wheelhouse. So it's just it's a question of scale. And again, I like applaud the ambition and would want to work with you on Barton Motors site, but within the kind of framework of this program, that might be a bit much.
Yeah, and I kind of was getting that sense, but like you still have to ask the question.
Oh,
right?
totally.
And just
I'm glad
I
you did.
need to
I'm
hear
glad you
the
did.
no, even though it's
Yeah.
sad. I need just that kind of confirmation. But on a side note, if I can just ask one more, Glover is doing this Heart of Glover. I don't know if you know about this, and it's going to be, outdoor recreation and a pavilion and the farmers market and a gathering place for the community. I don't think that's a good fit, but I'm wondering if because they want to have the pavilion and have music and have art shows and have the farmers market, if there's any way that that could sort of fall into line with what you guys want to do. And no is okay. I totally understand. I just
Yeah.
have to ask.
My hope would be, and this relates to the Barton Motors project, right? That part of this is it's not a one and done scenario, right?
Yeah.
The idea is that you find a historic building or a site in the historic fabric that this community trust works to build. And in doing that, they build the community capacity and the confidence to tackle any number of projects in the future, right? So in the Glover example, building a new pavilion, probably not.
Okay.
But restoring, a historic home in the village of Glover and turning it into, affordable housing for a village scale or some kind of mixed use development that then builds up a community group that's ready to tackle a pavilion project. Or similarly in Barton, if you tackle the TD Bank building, build up a community coalition that shows success and that they can get things done, then they can lean in to help support a larger development group around Barton Motors. But I guess I hope that answers the question. It's really about building community capacity.
Yep, totally get it. And on a side note, stay tuned because TD Bank may be another thing that I'm calling you about. All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, Nick, is there another question we've missed? I just want to make sure I'm.
There is just one more, but I also want to say, Artie, are you still also waiting to speak again? Just wanted to keep track. All right, fantastic. Looks like Gretchen Harvey has a question about if preconditioned formation of a nonprofit community trust is necessary, as there's already 2 nonprofits in the town, Historical Society and another. Gretchen, I don't know if you have anything additional to add to that.
I don't mind just reiterating that, yes,
Yep.
there's probably groups that you may not even know are there. So any collaborative efforts to just reach out to a historical society or another group to see if they are interested. They may want to be bolstered up, or we could be creating something new. So it kind of just depends on connecting with that group and seeing where they are in their work.
Would there be some way to do a search for a nonprofit? Because obviously they would likely be registered in the town you're living in anyway, right? So is there a database or somewhere online to search to see if maybe there's sort of a dormant nonprofit?
There is a way to search that. I will get back to you, Janet. I know that Vermont Community Foundation actually gave us a list at one point, so we probably could just pull that up and let you know, but I will make sure that you get that information. All right, well, I think the last question, I kind of spoke to it in the chat, but if you did apply last year, welcome back. We're really excited that you're here. You're welcome to apply again. You're more than welcome to reach out to us to get feedback on the first year's application, but I just want to remind you that this year's is a little bit different. And again, those 3 C's, clear, concise, compelling, are going to help move you forward. Really speak to the need in your community and what you're trying to achieve, how it's going to be supporting the vitality of your community. And again, this is not just historic preservation the way that you often think about it. This is very much about the people that are going to be utilizing that space. So just be thinking about that element as well.
And I'll just add to the previous question. Lori dropped in the chat that you can search for the nonprofit entities on the VT Secretary of State website. So, yeah. We only have a few minutes left. We might have time for one more question. Megan, I see you raising your hand if you want to jump in.
Yeah, my question is that when we're talking about community need, I guess the underlying assumption is that there is a community need for a foundation like this to do things. But part of me is wondering if what could count as a community need is the need for something other than the select board and private businesses to be the kind of momentum building motor. If that's does that count as a need, or is that an assumption that everybody's going to need that?
That's the point of the program.
Right, what I figured.
It's great.
Okay, good.
Megan, that you could call that out if that's how it is for your group, that you just need an organization to give you guys capacity. That's clear, that's concise,
we-
and that's compelling.
we-
So you got it.
And we know it now very clearly.
And it
Great.
looks like there's just one quick question about that greenways don't qualify, but can you speak to Teresa's question about whether green space doesn't qualify? I think
Yeah,
there's some projects that have fields nearby, but maybe you can talk a little bit more about that.
yeah, and I think Nicole kind of mentioned that in the previous answer, but yeah, green spaces, greenfield development does not qualify. If you are developing on a brownfield, it is something that, you know, again, reach out to us if it's the correct scale and a community need, all of that. You could potentially be part of this program, but reach out and we can go through the details. But yes, parks, trails, park pavilions, etc., are not going to be part of this program. As Ben was speaking to a bit earlier, we do hope that you grow, and we have some groups in this year's program who are already doing that and taking on some field restoration, but they applied and their primary focus right now is working through what we're going to be doing with that building in their village environment. So I think is there anything else really burning or
And Rossman has a
Thank
question.
you.
And
Being completely overwhelmed at this point, in Jamaica, in Rawsonville, is a schoolhouse that when Bailey Rawson first founded Rawsonville in 1812, that we have a triumvirate currently working with the town, the Historic Society, and the Rawson Family Association, which is about to hold its 108th reunion at the schoolhouse. The schoolhouse has no plumbing, no heating, you name it, it doesn't have it. It has a two-holer left over from whenever. The need is the desire to turn it, without changing its culture, into an emergency shelter, as well as a community center that can be used by the community. I mean, is this a project that sounds like it fits? I'm so confused right now, I'm not sure.
I'll speak to that in one sec. Nicole, if you want to talk about how it fits.
Yes, and in a nutshell, I'm going to say yes again without knowing the specifics, because again, we want to make sure that it's in that village environment, that Jamaica is in a town that's under 2,500, all these pieces. But yes, you're already speaking to a specific need within that community, and that how this building could be achieving that. And so if you were invited into the program, or if you're not, we're here to help you out. We can be kind of like starting to ask those questions about the space and the building. What can we be doing to help you move that dial for that building and space?
Yeah. Thank you.
Trish, did you have something related or?
Sorry, I just had kind of a final question. So I'm with St. Albans Museum, but there's a lot of smaller surrounding towns that are often contacting us to see if we can support on co-writing grants or with their initiatives. And I'm just curious if there's any kind of conflict of interest if people from our board or our staff supported smaller towns who are in our service area for cultural preservation and cultural heritage. Is that acceptable on a project submitted for this?
Again, I'm going to say yes, because capacity anywhere is going to be helpful for additional capacity. So if you guys at the museum are able and have the capacity to help a surrounding community bolster up to apply, and then you could help them in the long run, I don't think that that's going to be a conflict of interest. I feel like you're setting up growth and support the way that we need. But again, without knowing the specifics, let's get in touch. Yeah.
This is likely a grant that could potentially be covered by Ready funding as well for a grant writer.
Yeah, and we'll connect you if you're not already connected with other resources such as the Ready program. You know, we'll work to connect you with those as we move forward in the program. And that kind of spills in. I'm going to conclude questions here and just remind you, you know, reach out if you do have a question. We will be having those office hours starting in a few weeks. So we'll announce that on our website so you know how to sign up and how to get in touch with us to have these longer, more in-depth conversations. We can really workshop your idea. But the last thing that I want to say, besides thank you to Ben and Nicole for handling all the tough questions, is this is a lot of information. And it feels overwhelming. I'm sure, you know, I know some of our groups that we're working with right now still feel overwhelmed because this is a learning process and a lot of new stuff coming at you. And so, like I said, we will be sending this all out for you to look at again. Again, know that we're there. We're there through your application process, and we'll be there through the program. And we'll try to follow up with communities who aren't in this year's cohort to try to support them however we have capacity for as they move forward. So don't be scared. It's okay to be overwhelmed. Don't be afraid. Reach out to us. And we'll try to sort of ease that and sort some of that out for you. So I don't know, Nicole or Ben, if you have any closing remarks, but otherwise I just want to say thank you for everybody to show up today. Oh, we're good. All right. Thank you. And we'll be sending this out soon. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.